Alright, be honest with me. We all love a good anti-hero, don't we? As much as the stalwart moral heroes of fantasy and fables have cemented themselves in our culture, there's just something endearing about a character who bucks those heroic traits, who may not even be a good person, but you just love to root for. Jack Sparrow, Walter White, Sterling Archer, Dexter Morgan, Light Yagami, Tony Soprano, The Punisher, Deadpool. The list is practically endless, but there's one that stands out. One horrific, morally indefensible, terrible person who's also just so much goddamn fun. If you haven't heard of him, you're in for a wild ride. I'm talking about the one and only Rance. Now, if at any point you think I'm doing a good job, please consider leaving a like and subscribe for more content. It really does help me out as a creator. Also, Twitter and Discord exist, and check out my Patreon page for early access to future videos. Okay, before I really get into it, I have to go over two things really quickly. First is a content warning. Rance is a character who is more than willing to engage in adult activities where not everyone is a willing participant. It's impossible to talk about Rance without bringing up these topics. If that's seriously disturbing to you, this may not be the video for you. Secondly, you may have noticed that I kind of skirted around the actual word for the thing I'm describing. That's because it's one of YouTube's no-no words that may not necessarily cause issues, but definitely can. So instead of calling it by its more well-known name, I'm going to refer to it as a struggle snuggle. No, I'm not sorry. Alright, we all good? Let's get into it. So a lot of you who are removed from the realm of edoge and visual novels may not know this, but the Rance series has a very long legacy. In fact, Rance is only 2 years younger than Final Fantasy. It's been around and it's actually pretty widely loved in the visual novel community. As far as adult gaming goes, I'd say Rance is one of the best series out there. Rance is essentially a parody of the traditional fantasy hero and of the traditional RPG hero, both Western and Japanese. To put it simply, Rance is a narcissistic, horny piece of shit. The series is comedic in nature and basically takes the concept of a selfish, arrogant fantasy hero and takes it to the logical extreme, where Rance doesn't help people for nothing, seeks out sex wherever he can, be it willing or otherwise, and will act like a complete dick to the people around him just because he feels like it. The games have a tendency to dial the absurdity factor up to 11, and there are countless jokes and Easter eggs scattered throughout. And of course, this is an adult game. Whenever Rance is able to get some action, you the player are taken along for the ride. So today, I'm going to take a look at Rance 01, The Quest for Hikari, a 2013 remake of the original 1989 release. Why did I pick this one specifically? Though it's not the most popular of the series, it puts us at the beginning of the story. And one thing you need to know about Rance. Despite the series essentially having a joke as its premise, a lot of care is put into the world and story of Rance, and as the series progresses, the lore becomes quite detailed and expansive. It's honestly very good, and it's surprising that so much love and care was put into what is essentially a horny shitpost. So I figure if I'm gonna talk about Rance, I'll start at the beginning. And why did I pick the remake over the original? Well, I actually played the original a couple years back, and honestly, it did not age well, and I don't think I could have made a particularly good video about it. Plus, the modern art is more appealing to me, and the original has some ugly graphical bugs that I feel would lower the quality of the video. So be warned, spoilers ahead. Rance 01 starts out like a standard JRPG story-wise. Rance is given a quest by the local adventurers guild to rescue a girl named Hikari who had recently gone missing in the city of Lazis. The trip there serves both to introduce our main characters and give a basic gameplay tutorial. So while we saw that Rance was a bit of an arrogant asshole when talking to the guild leader, essentially demanding high-end quests despite being a rookie in the guild, we really get a better look at his character when we meet Sill Plain, his slave. She had brought him some water and he punches her in the face for taking too long. But it's like cartoon punching, where she's never seriously injured, and no matter how mean he is, Sill just kinda gets over it before long. The gameplay was completely revamped for the remake, and it's actually quite unique. During the dungeon crawling portions, there are rows of 5 cards each. Each card can be a blank space, a barrier completely preventing passage, a monster you have to fight, a trap that'll either deal damage or cause some kind of status effect, treasure, or a special tile that can bring you to a new area or have some kind of special effect. Some cards are face down and can only be revealed by activating them. And you can also usually partially see the cards 2 to 3 rows in advance, allowing you to plan ahead of time. You travel through the dungeons based on your position relative to these 5 cards. You can move straight ahead, or ahead and 1 card to the left or right. Generally speaking, you'll have an objective in the dungeon such as killing the boss or retrieving an item. The dungeon will also loop until you reach your objective or the exit. The combat system is pretty neat, and as you can imagine, it happens whenever you step on a monster card. I'm gonna call it the chip system because most of the icons and items are represented as poker chips. Every turn, the enemy will reveal its intentions to you. The most common are attack and defend, though some enemies will be situationally weak to certain kinds of attacks. Every attack and defense is given a letter rank, you know, D, C, B, A, S. The higher the attack rank, the more damage they'll do. The higher the defense rank, the more damage they will absorb on that turn. So naturally, you have to structure your own attacks and defenses to react accordingly. This is done via your items, which are known as chips. The standard type of chips are weapons and shields. These will either deal or absorb damage and come with a cooldown. You can use as many or as few chips as you'd like on each turn, and you can unlock slots to hold more chips throughout the game, primarily by leveling up, though there are a few other ways to do this as well. There are also consumable chips. These will typically offer higher attack or defense bonuses than are common at that point of the game, but are discarded after a single use. There are also healing items that can only be used outside of combat to restore health or cure status effects. One interesting factor is that cooldowns are only fully reset when you leave the dungeon crawl and go back to Lazis, so if you kill an enemy with a chip that has a 3-turn cooldown, it'll still be on cooldown for the next enemy. So there's a big risk-reward factor that goes into combat, not just battle to battle, but throughout the dungeon overall. For example, towards the end of the game, there's a section where you have to fight an enemy multiple times throughout the course of a dungeon. Each time, the enemy will deal an S-rank attack, which will likely straight up one-hit you if you don't defend. Fortunately, its health is very low, so as long as you survive, you'll likely win in a single turn. So I had to structure my plan of attack so I not only triggered these fights, but avoided scenarios that would leave all my defensive chips on cooldown when I fought, and I would have to make sure to always have defensive options available to me, and it played out almost like a puzzle. This whole system can be a bit confusing at first, especially before you have a good general idea of what all the ranks really mean. After all, health and damage is displayed in numbers. Your own chips have their attack and defense listed as numbers, but the attack and defense of enemies is done by a rank, so until you kind of internalize it, it's a bit weird. That being said, I actually think this is a fun and unique system, and while it uses certain ideas that I've seen in other games, I don't think I've seen a system quite like it before. In Town, the gameplay is entirely different. It actually reminds me of those point-and-click games people make on the Ren'Py engine. You can go to various locations with more unlocking as you progress. From there, everything you can do is divided into 5 activity categories: look, talk, touch, assault, and leave. You'll always have a couple of standard options, like look at something, which will usually just give you some sort of flavor text about the environment. You'll also have more direct options to interact with people and the environment, such as searching the area, asking around about Hikari, or discussing a lead on your current quest. The assault option is fucking hilarious. Of course, there's the assault something option, where Rance will basically just fuck shit up in the immediate vicinity, and nobody really cares, which I'm pretty sure is making fun of the whole break containers and ransack everything mentality present in a lot of video games. You can also choose to assault whoever happens to be there, which sometimes means beat them up, but usually means bang them. You'll generally need to find a certain set of event flags through these dialogue options with the right characters to move the story forward. It has a neat little retro feel to it, and the original game had a similar feature, though it wasn't quite as fleshed out. Now, I get that this system is meant to pay homage to the original, and I do find it charming, but it is pretty clunky at times. I mean, having to go through the look at products option to trade or into the touch menu to save is just a little unwieldy, and it's not always clear when new options are available, because sometimes new stuff is added to existing dialogue options once certain prerequisites are met or certain dialogue has been witnessed. It's nothing too terrible, but I definitely feel it could have been done better, and as a result, it already feels a bit dated. And I can only imagine that feeling will be worse as time goes on. One thing about Rance 01 that's kind of fun is that there are a bunch of side quests that'll usually result in a sex scene or two. It's done in a similar manner as the main story, while you'll have to go through the proper dialogue choices. However, you'll also typically have to find some sort of item to seal the deal, as it were. These quest-related items are generally treated as a weak consumable, so you won't be inclined to use it, but you absolutely can. These quests are very charming, often fun, and really help flesh out the characters and how everyone interacts with one another. And you get some nice H scenes as a reward provided you meet all the requirements and hang on to the important items. And that brings me to one of my biggest gripes about Rance 01. There are a ton of easily skippable scenes in the game, and by easily skippable, I mean you will miss scenes if you don't use a walkthrough. Now, I'm not a huge fan of when games have missable content in general, but I think Rance 01 is particularly bad. Now, it's not the fact that you can waste important items. Honestly, it's pretty clear which items are not meant to be used up, so that's no real issue. My issue comes with the fact that there are a lot of expiry flags for various quest lines that are not at all made clear. Here's the thing, if a game warns you that continuing will cause you to miss out on content, I'm fine with that because if you go on, you're making the conscious choice to do so. However, in Rance 01, you just don't know when a certain amount of progress will lock you out of certain scenes. It'll just happen and you may not even realize it until later on. And it's especially frustrating when you consider the fact that the game honestly doesn't have very much replay value, at least not to me. So it's pretty painful if you want to basically grind through the whole game again to collect stuff you missed. Plus, I generally like to play through my games blind, though I was warned ahead of time about the missable scenes. Thanks for the heads up, Lemonov. This issue is mitigated somewhat by the fact that you have a veritable shitload of save slots available to you, so you could feasibly save at every checkpoint and cut back on wasted time if you wanted to go back when you missed stuff. But that's honestly a lot of hassle. When I look back at Rance 01, this is probably the single biggest factor that holds it back. I just really don't like how easy it is to miss out on content, especially when it's hard to justify playing through the game a second time to get it. It's really a shame because the rest of the pieces that make up the game are honestly very good, and I largely enjoyed myself as I played through the game. Now of course, I have to talk about story, and I think the first thing I need to do there is talk about how Rance 01 handles its sex scenes. As I mentioned before, Rance as a character has absolutely no aversion to struggle snuggling. Even for an anti-hero, that's a line that most refuse to cross. So the developers had a very fine line to toe in order to make sure the audience is still on Rance's side. After examining the sex scenes for hours on end because I like to be thorough with my research, I think I figured out how they went about it. So first off, we the audience are willing to alter our own moral perceptions a bit. Sort of like how we can use suspension of disbelief to accept unrealistic things in the context of the story, we can also accept certain immoral things in the context of our protagonist. So that helps a bit, but honestly when it comes to struggle snuggling, that's not enough to justify it, especially when it comes to named characters with endearing personalities. It would be easier to accept if it were just nameless background figures, but these are all likable characters. Well, I've isolated 4 factors that are used to not necessarily make us agree with these actions, but at least accept them in the context of the story. The first factor is consent. If the girl in question gives the okay in any way, shape, or form, it's all good. Even if such consent is given under duress, at the end of the day, we can accept it as long as it's not forced. The second factor is humor. If the scene is funny, that can absolutely override the objectively terrible things Rance is doing. Let's be real here, the series is comedic in nature and edgy humor is nothing new. If we find the shit funny, we can accept the things that are going on. The third factor is one that's so smart it requires a 6-syllable word: consequentialism. Basically, if the girl in question is better off for having encountered Rance, we're more inclined to take the scene as the lesser of two evils. A good example is when, during the course of the story, Rance rescues a girl named Pulp Tanks from a group of thieves, the leader of which had her tied up and blindfolded as he relentlessly teased her with his toys. Rance then kills the leader and you can guess what happens next. So while this is obviously not a good thing, Rance ultimately rescues her and brings her home. The last factor is morality. If the girl in question has some sort of severe moral failing, we feel a lot less bad about what happens to her. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to describe it as they deserved it, because that would just get my ass cancelled, but if the character is not a good person, it's not like we're going to shed a tear, right? A good example of this is one of the side characters, Hazuki. She's a dealer at the casino, and to put it simply, she cheats. She's also sent many people into financial ruin as a result of this cheating, so she's not exactly a good person. Well, when Rance figures it out, beats her, and exposes her, he chases her down and aggressively struggle snuggles her. Again, bad person, so we don't care all that much. Just about every sex scene in Rance 01 leans into one or more of these 4 factors, and even when Rance is just being a complete asshole, we the player never stop being on his side. I know I mentioned it earlier, but one thing I have to reiterate is that the game and the series as a whole is fucking funny. It really is. Just about every word that comes out of Rance's mouth is pure comedy gold. I found a collection of quotes from the series on the Alisoft wiki, and I'd like to share a couple with you. "My manly dick, stretched out to the heavens, is truly a gallant sight. A man's worth and whether they've succeeded in life is determined by the number of women they've fucked. I was given life to fuck the Demon King. Damn stupid sun, making it morning whenever it wants, even though I'm sleepy. Who does it think it is? Doesn't it know it has me to thank for its continued existence? Do the heavens oppose me? Did I piss you off, heavens? Girls should be treasured. I'm a feminist, you know." Rance is constantly spouting off arrogant, self-righteous, horny shit, and it honestly makes the minute-to-minute experience so fun. You never know what kind of stupid crap he's gonna pull, and that makes everything exciting. There were so many times where I was playing the game and I would give a little chuckle and say, "He's such a fucking dick." Like, there's the shopkeeper Patty. Once you unlock her H scene, it's revealed that despite running a beachside shop, she's deathly afraid of water, to the point where she only showers rather than bathes. So Rance, being the absolute gentleman that he is, decides to help her by shoving her face into the water and holding her head down. So he'll periodically lift her up and shove her head back down, and the first-person narration actually refers to it as letting her play in the water. So naturally, as he's fucking waterboarding this poor girl, he decides that the best course of action is to start nailing her from behind. And everything from the absurdity of the situation to Rance's internal monologue describing the whole situation, which has the same cocky energy as every piece of dialogue, to the over-the-top demonic face they gave Rance for this scene, just made it so fucking hilarious. Every scene has stuff like this, and the whole thing is ridiculous, but in a very good way. And the relationship between Rance and his slave Sill is honestly phenomenal. Well, phenomenal in terms of writing. The actual relationship is incredibly abusive. The thing is that these two have incredible chemistry. Sill's general kindness, wholesomeness, and mental fortitude act as a great foil to Rance's everything. I mean, I think this dynamic is perfectly encapsulated by the scene where Sill is feeding a little puppy in the park and Rance tap dances on its head. I'm actually kind of disappointed that the two spend the first half of the game mostly separate, as Sill had infiltrated Hikaru's school to investigate. Every time the two interact, it just works. Rance will demand something from Sill will be fucking adorable, Rance will insult her and hit and or fuck her, and then Sill will sob, like the dialogue actually says, sob sob sob. And then she just gets over it and they continue as they were. Honestly, I'm not even close to doing their dynamic justice. These two have seriously top tier banter, and I'd say it's one of the best things from at least Rance 01. I fucking love these two. So how does the actual story go? Well, the story of Rance 01 is actually pretty simple, especially compared to the rest of the series. As I mentioned earlier, Rance and Sill traveled to Lazis to search for Hikari, who had gone missing. Now, I'm going to condense the events of the story a lot because the individual events don't actually matter all that much in terms of the overall plot. Word starts to get around that Rance and Sill are looking for Hikari, and a ninja tries to intimidate Rance into dropping the investigation. Now, since Rance is like the king of narcissists, this has the exact opposite effect, so he's determined to track down the ninja because he's pissed and because he knows that she knows something. After a series of events, he gains access to the castle, makes a name for himself in the gladiatorial arena, and eventually catches the attention of the Princess Leah. She sends him to clear out the ghosts in an abandoned mansion. He discovers a bunch of girls who have been tied up and subjected to brutal sexual torture, and he eventually frees the ghost of one of the girls who had game-ended herself due to the brutal treatment she'd received. Of course, Rance snuggles the girls before, as Rance himself describes it, taking the gentlemanly action of releasing them from their restraints. As it turns out, Leah was the one who imprisoned them, often having the aforementioned ninja do the actual kidnapping. To put it simply, she's a sadist and she enjoys making these girls suffer. Sometimes they end up dead. This pisses Rance off as he considers killing cute girls to be one of the worst things anyone can do because then there's less for him. Yeah, never change Rance. She then tries to recruit him as her pet, but Rance is having none of it. So fast forward a bit again, and he rescues Hikari from the abandoned mansion and chases Leah down, beating and snuggling the ninja and her personal guard. And when he finally catches up to her, she's still arrogant and confident that her power and wealth will turn the situation in her favor. But of course, this is Rance. So as you can imagine, Rance, and I'm quoting the game here, gives her the hammer of justice. And holy shit, this scene is fucking hilarious despite being one of the most brutal. Firstly, the track My Glorious Days starts playing. I'll have it playing in the background of the video now so you can hear how triumphant and upbeat the song is. That alone made me legitimately laugh. Also, in the art itself, though I obviously can't show it here, you can actually see a bulge in her stomach made by Rance's dick. And this is all happening, and Rance is going through just this pure manic glee. He's just so thrilled like a kid in a candy shop, and Sill's also off to the side bored out of her mind. It had only been 4 months since he bought her, but she was used to his shit by now. Like when I was talking about the Rance-Sill dynamic, I really can't do this scene justice by just describing it to you, so this is something I definitely would recommend experiencing for yourself. So after all that, he returns home and claims his 30,000 gold reward for the job. However, as he's lounging in a tub full of coins, he's surrounded by Leah and the royal guard. But instead of arresting him, she informs him that it's family tradition for the royals to marry their first. Rance is all like, no, I can't be tied down to one woman, and makes a break for it, grabbing Sill but leaving most of the money behind, setting up their need to continue adventuring. Afterwards, you'll get a short post-credits scene for each of the major characters you've encountered, most of them being girls Rance fucked. They all end up pining for him, which I find mildly amusing. And then, that's it. There's some really neat and funny behind the scenes stuff you can access from the main menu, but as far as the actual story goes, that's it. So basically, that's the story of Rance 01. Now, if you were paying attention, you'll remember that I mentioned that Rance as a series has incredible lore, world building, and storytelling in general, so what gives? We really don't see that much of it here, and the story itself is fairly basic. In fact, most of the actual technically impressive stuff is in the character interactions. Well, think of it this way. Remember that Rance 01 is a remake of the original Rance game from 1989. All that wonderful lore and world building just didn't exist for that game, and it came later in the series. While Rance 01 is a lot more fleshed out than the original game, it still doesn't quite have the complexity and depth that the series would eventually become known for. Think of Final Fantasy. That series is often highly praised for the stories it has to tell, and for good reason. But have you ever played the original Final Fantasy, which came out 2 years before the first Rance game? I have, and the story fucking sucks. It took time for Final Fantasy to really grow into the powerhouse it's known to be, and the same can be said for Rance. And there's only so much a remake can fix about the original when it has to follow the same basic plot and story structure. So Rance 01 isn't a particularly strong story, and it isn't representative of the series as a whole, at least in terms of writing. So here's where I have to ask something of you, the viewer. Now, I'm not one to use dirty tricks to boost engagement. I just ask for it at the beginning and end of the video, and I prefer to be honest about it. So this is not a tactic, it's a genuine question. do you want me to continue covering Rance? Honestly, looking at the script and seeing this is only going to be like a 20-minute video is kinda shocking because I know that Rance is something that has tons and tons of stuff to talk about. So I have to ask, do you want me to make content on the rest of the series? Because I'm willing to go through each and every game, but I have to know if this is something my audience wants. These videos, due to the subject matter of Rance, come with an increased risk of demonetization and suppression in the algorithm. I'm fully willing to do it, but not if my audience doesn't care. Please do let me know in the comments. You all know that I love talking story, and honestly, I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't enough here for me to go on and on. I'll definitely at least be playing the future Rance games, even if you guys don't really want more videos. So what do I think of Rance 01? Well, it's not the powerhouse that the series eventually became, but it was a fun time. The story was fairly lackluster overall, but the minute-to-minute bits were incredibly fun and engaging. So in the moment, I was thoroughly enjoying myself, even if it felt a little empty at the end. The gameplay was a little clunky in town, but perfectly functional, and the dungeon crawling was actually very fun, and I enjoyed actually playing the game. And I didn't mention it earlier, but I absolutely loved the art and character design. Overall, this is not representative of what the series would eventually become, but it's a good time, and I definitely recommend it if you're looking for something to kill time with. Alternatively, you can play the original for free. Yeah, Alicesoft is actually pretty based, and the original Rance games from 1 to 4, 4.1, 4.2, and Kichikuo Rance are all officially freeware alongside a bunch of other older titles. So if you're interested in dipping your toes into the world of Rance, you don't actually have to invest anything but time. But in conclusion, it's a good game, but a little lackluster compared to what I know is coming. I had fun with it. Thanks for watching. Big thank you to my patrons, especially my $10 patrons Spawn and Bulk Squat Thrust. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Follow me on Twitter at adstweets for updates and memes, and join my Discord server for some fun times. And consider checking out my Patreon page for early access to future videos. I'm determined to keep pumping out videos even though I'm also working on a huge ass fucking project as well, which I'll tell you more about when it's close to being done. Oh yeah, and make sure to let me know if I should continue talking about the Rance games. I actually want your feedback here. Well, once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Play the Actually, you know what? Forget the electro swing. Today, I want to go out like a fucking Chad. Hit it.